Hey, everybody, it's me, Tuniscia O, and welcome to Tea with Tuniscia O, where I'm a transformational coach, keynote speaker, and corporate trainer supporting you with building wealth through forgiveness. And today we're going to talk about forgiveness versus reconciliation, because a lot of times there's this misunderstanding. Once we forgive, we automatically are reconciled. We're automatically friends. We need to get over it. Like when something happens, we're offended. People are like, I forgave you. So get over it. Move on. You're forgiven. But it's not always that easy, and we don't get to decide how quickly the other person forgives or moves on, or is ready to reconcile. So what's the difference? The difference is forgiveness is something that's one-sided. I forgive. I've decided to grow through something, but just because I've forgiven someone for an offense that has happened doesn't mean that I have to want to reconcile. That doesn't mean that I have to want them back in my space. It doesn't mean that the relationship is going to be the same. It does mean that there may be some time where we are distanced a little bit, or I get to love them from a distance. So often people feel like, especially in Christianity, we must forgive. But then they forget to tell us what comes next. Like after we forgive, then what? Then what? Like, are we being truthful? Are we being genuine? Are we being kind-hearted? Because forgiveness is a journey, and we got to work through that stuff ourselves first before we can incorporate someone else. I know when I've gone through some serious stuff with forgiveness, part of the layers of what I have to work through is forgiving myself for even being in that place. Sometimes some of the hardest offenses that I've had to work through was me being so angry with myself for even putting myself in that predicament. How did you get there? Tuniscia, it's your fault. I began to beat myself up so much that I can't even get to forgiving the other person because I'm still stuck with myself. So that forgiveness comes from me first, and then me reconciling with myself to say, you're beautifully imperfect. You're perfectly imperfect. You made the mistake. It was a lesson, not a life sentence. Talking ourselves through what led me to making those decisions. So reconciling within myself after I forgive myself. Once we forgive ourselves, then we can start talking about where we are with forgiving and working through things with other people. But listen, if you are in a place where you have not forgiven somebody, this is not the time to shove anything down their throat to force feed them forgiveness. You can't force anybody to forgive you. You cannot force anybody to be in a relationship with you. You can't force them to do something they don't want to do, because that's not reconciliation, especially when we are upset with somebody and our idea of forgiveness is telling them, well, you know how many things you did to me? I forgave you. I got over it. How come you can't get over it? We're different. So let's just understand there is a huge difference between forgiveness and reconciliation. And before we even move into the reconciliation, we got to process our own forgiveness within ourselves. Forgive ourselves first for being in the situation, and then begin to work through reconciliation. And what does that look like? Because it could look a little different than the way the other person wants it. So listen, don't make what they want your forgiveness or your relationship to look like be your stuff. You get to decide how your relationship looks moving forward. But first, forgive yourself, reconcile with yourself, and then create the boundaries that need to be set, or create the way it's going to look, if it's going to look anyway. But until you get to the core of what you're really upset within yourself, don't force yourself to move forward with anyone else, because that's where that resentment, anger, bitterness, and all those other ugly, nasty things rear their heads in our lives because we're not true to ourselves. So forgiveness versus reconciliation, they are two very different things. Forgiveness is one-sided. It's what you do for yourself. And yes, once you forgive someone else, you're reconciling, working through things with them. That's two people reconciling to work something out. But first, forgiveness starts with you, and then you extend it to someone else as that beautiful gift. From my family to yours, I love you guys. I hope that you're forgiving. I hope that you're reconciling, and I hope that we're able to grow through these different issues that come up in our lives in various ways. From my family to yours, I love you guys. See you soon. Ciao.